I didn't say in my description much about who I was in what I do, because what I do is still kind of pretty new. So who I am is a wife and a mother, and an individual who's learning as I go. So what I do now is I'm a faith-based speaker and blogger with absolutely no clue of really how to do it, to be honest. So what I wanted to share with you today is that you can have the life that you wanted in your plan simply by going after whatever it is. And I can tell you that because I had it. I experienced it. I had the job that people, thought was the greatest thing to have. I, and happily married. I have great children. I have a stepdaughter who welcomed me into the family when she was 13 years old. That's not a small feat, people. Okay? So having that, and then having our own children and moving on with life, I worked at a job that I loved. I worked with people that I truly enjoyed. My job was hectic and crazy and challenging and everything that I loved. It allowed us to have a great life. We had, ample opportunity for vacations, and we went on multiple destination vacations. We were able to, have the toys that we wanted, a boat and trailer and those sort of things. And, I had the pension, I had it all. But all of a sudden one day, I started to feel like in this life that was so great, I was a prisoner all of a sudden. I couldn't figure out why. Like, what could possibly be wrong where I'm living what my plan was, my dream, and then all of a sudden, without anything really changing, I felt like a prisoner to it. I remember the first day that I, uttered to my husband the words, something's wrong, but I feel like, this job that I'm so content in, this life that I'm so content with, all of a sudden I feel like a prisoner to it. That's the words that I just kept saying over and over. And he's like, well, you can't quit, right? Yeah, I know. So what did I think? Okay, it wasn't challenging enough anymore. I must have to go after something harder, something more, to test me more. So what I did was, realized there was a new opening up in my office, and I was qualified for it, so I asked if I could try this new position. And I figured it would kind of be welcomed, but the problem was the position that I was in was not one that many people wanted. So in my smartness, I said I'd continue to do the old job while I was doing the new job while they looked for somebody. Please, if you learn one thing, don't do that. Don't do that. So after a few months of doing this, at about the 6-month mark of working 2 jobs, sacrificing breaks, lunches, everything, my health was starting to feel the worst of it. So I would speak to my supervisors and boss, who I think really genuinely cared, but just couldn't find an individual to fill the old position, and I wasn't willing to give up the new one because I still felt like a prisoner who needed a way out. So long story short, I'm not going to get into all of that too much, but a year later, my body started to just cave in to what I was trying to keep up to. I went to the doctor thinking I was going to be put off work maybe for a week or so to relax, and then I would go back and demand that I was just doing one job, and that was it. That was 2 years ago, and I'm still off work. My body still struggles from what I put myself through. Now, I don't tell you that to go, okay, let's go after all we want just to have it crushed by, a stupid choice or anything. I tell you that because I want you to consider something different. I thought that my plan for my life was great. I loved my life. I was content. But like I said, I started at one point to feel like a prisoner. I believe that that feeling came not from me, but from God trying to get my attention. He wanted me to do something else, and I can remember the first time that I got that thought about writing or speaking, and I was like, okay, just a second. I get up in the morning and leave for work before anybody's out of bed. I run like a fool while I'm there. I have an hour and a half commute each way. By the time I get home and tend to my 2 young children, it's supper time, I make dinner. And I'm sure a lot of you women here can relate. You make dinner, then you're running the dishwater and the bath water at the same time. One soaking while you're washing the other, and you're flipping back and forth. You're throwing laundry in so you can read a book before they go to bed. Right? You can relate. I didn't have any extra time to start writing or speaking. So clearly, God, you're mistaken. You didn't call me for something else. You know my plate is full. And I can recall having the conversation where I thought that I could negotiate with God. That's logical, isn't it? I'm, an individual in charge of my own life. I should be able to negotiate with God. Here's what I'll do. When you give me a thought, I'll write a little post on Facebook for you. Does that work? Good. Seems like a logical solution. And I'm sure he laughed at me just like you all did right there. But I did continue for a while and thinking that that was good enough. That's what I was going to do. But like I said, God had other plans. And so when I wasn't listening to him try to get my attention when he was telling with those feelings of being a prisoner, he decided to put a halt on things. And my life stopped. I was not somebody who thought I could ever be content, not chasing after a job and living that dream. But when I went off work, I would say for the first few weeks, I really wasn't thinking much more than, okay, I'm just going to have this break. I'm going to feel better. But I started to feel worse. My health kind of just kept piling on. I think because once I slowed down, it started to feel everything more. And I can remember going to appointment after appointment, seeing specialist after specialist, because I was running a fever 24/7. I was forgetting things, as simple as getting into the shower and remembering what step came next. I would not know if I had brushed my teeth unless I moved the toothbrush from one spot to the other. I would not know what went in the macaroni salad that I had made for 20 years. And it was kind of frightening. But for some reason, I wasn't real scared. And I can remember people asking me, how are things going? And I say, well, nothing's changed, but that's okay because I know that God's in control. I finished every sentence with that. I had never really spoken those words before. I'd believed them. I want to say up to that point, maybe a little more surface-like. But I started to believe them every time I spoke them from that point on. And I started to notice that I was in a completely unknown and uncomfortable situation, but I was filled with peace. When it says in the Bible that you'll have peace that surpasses all understanding, that had new meaning to me. So anyway, time passed on, and I started thinking, well, surely there's got to be more in store for me than just living this life of illness. And, I must be able to do something. So that's when I started to open myself up more to being prepared for something other than what my dream was, I became aware that God had a dream or a plan for me. It's in that time that there were 2 passages in the Bible that came to mind all the time, and I'm just going to read them so that I don't mess it up in any way. The first one I seemed to hang on to for the first couple months was Jeremiah 29:11, and where it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." And I just kind of kept, playing that over in my head, thinking, if that's your plan for me, God, then you're not going to leave me here like this. And I hung on to that, and that, there was peace that made no sense. And then the other thing was, and we know Romans 8:28, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. So we've all been called. God's called all of us to do something. And you can go ahead and you can chase the dream that you have, and you can have a good life, and you can be content. But I want you to consider today, if the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the creator of the universe, has taken the time to design a plan for you, imagine what that can be like. Like I said, I created a great plan for myself. I had a good life. But imagine what life's going to be like walking the plan that he has designed for me. Does that mean it's going to be easy? Absolutely not. When you decide that you're going to walk through that plan that God has for you, you can be sure that there's going to be challenges. You can be sure that you're going to be faced with questions, and that it's not going to follow on the timeline that you expected it to. And it's not going to look the way you thought it would. And it's not going to be anything that you would have picked for yourself. So why would you want to do it? Well, that's true, right? Because the thing is that God promised us that he designed you for a purpose. So if you want to know what it feels like to be working for that purpose of what you were designed for, follow his plan, not yours. If you want to know what it's like to be content in chaos, when things aren't supposed to make sense, when things are crazy and everything's coming against you, to be filled with peace, follow his plan, not yours. And if you want to know what it's like to not walk alone, follow his plan, because he promised to be with you. He promised to be your strength when you're weak. And I don't say that to belittle your efforts by any means. God designed you for a plan. He created you. He's given you what you need. And he will open the doors that need to be opened. And he's going to laugh when you try to open them yourself. I truly believe that God's got a sense of humor, and he sits back and laughs at us a lot, thinking, I don't know what you think you're doing there, but you're going left when I said straight ahead. Or God will give us the plan, and here's probably where I found my biggest mistake, is God gives us the plan of what he wants us to do. So once I got halted in my steps from my plan, and realized, okay, God, you've called me to be a writer and a speaker, and I'm not qualified for either, so I totally have to rely on whatever you give me. I thought, okay, so I'm supposed to charge after it. No, you got to remember it's in his timing, not ours. So that's a load off. Like, if you think about it, I don't have to worry about what's coming next. All I have to worry about is that next step. What did you show me to do next, Lord? Just that next step. And all the things that you're learning here today from all these other wonderful women with these, they've got a lot of great advice. And I'm terrible with names, as one of my issues is focus. The lady that spoke very first this morning. You follow those steps that she gave us, I guarantee you're going to have success. Those are good tips. And I found that since I'm following the plan that God's given me, and I'm taking that one step at a time, and I'm doing those 3 actions, I think it was, and then she gives, anyway, whatever they were. If you do that, you can be successful in your own plan, and you can be successful in God's plan. So all I guess I wanted to say to you today was, I want you to make no mistake about it, that there's not an individual in this room today, not one, that God didn't take the time and create a plan for. So you can leave here today and rack your brain about what it is that you want to do with your life, or you can take your time in quiet, seeking God and looking to Him for Him to reveal the perfect plan for you. Thanks, Charlotte.